I'm Sa, and this is the story of how my husband thought he could outsmart me. I woke to cold sheets and the thinnest thread of my husband's voice down the hall, low, hushed, careful. The hallway light was off, but a sliver of moonlight slid under the bedroom door and made a line across the floor. I followed the sound the way you follow a smell you can't place, slowly, with your jaw tight. She doesn't suspect anything yet, Dean whispered. I stopped. The sentence landed with the precision of a scalpel and the mess of a grenade. Breath. No, Ilya, listen to me. His voice dropped into a hiss I couldn't pass. Names sounded different in the dark. I rolled the syllables in my head and got nowhere. Ilya, Ilyana. A name I couldn't make fit any face I knew. He moved. I darted back to the bed and slid under the covers, desperate for the innocence of humidity and a pillow. The mattress dipped. He exhaled. A slow, performed release. He didn't touch me. Where were you? I asked, letting the gravel in my just-woke-up voice do its job. Bathroom, he said. Easy. Too easy. And the call, I added, because sometimes I like to put the bait on a plate. Client, he said, not missing a beat. Had to smooth out some details for a case. Dean is a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in downtown Buffalo. He does details. He does not do whispers. He does not do smoothing at night. He does not do anything that cannot be documented in a memo and CC'd to someone's boss. This was not a case call. This was a plot. I rolled over and let him believe I'd chosen sleep. It wasn't a lie. I chose to sleep on it because the part of me that knows how to speak in boardrooms knows you don't swing the hammer until you know which wall holds the house up. By morning, I was at the kitchen counter with my phone and the kind of coffee you make when you need your body to forgive your choices for one more hour. Dean was still asleep, his arm draped over the cool place where I had decided not to be. I don't usually check our bank accounts. Dean handles the monthly bills and the lawn service and the budget calendar, which he keeps taped to the side of the fridge like a vision board for grown-ups. We have a joint checking for shared expenses and 2 separate accounts for personal spending. We have a mortgage we can afford and a house we were stupidly proud to buy the year after we got married because our parents weren't. I opened the credit union app and scrolled. My stomach shrank in increments. $500, $200, $750, $2,000. A dozen withdrawals over the past 3 months. Not cash. Transfers. Always from joint. Always on Thursdays. Always between 8:10 and 8:30 p.m. Notes like, I am LLC. Consulting. Short term. I am Ilya Morrow. I whispered. The syllables on the tongue, the way you test. A foreign word. I am LLC. I typed it into the search bar like it might be a restaurant. It wasn't. The first result was a business registration for Ilya Morrow, LLC, filed February. Registered agent, Foundry Lane Suite, 4, Cheektowaga, NY. Manager, Dean Archer, Dean, my husband. The man who hates the DMV and refuses to register even for rewards programs at grocery stores because they're tracking you. Dean is not an entrepreneur. Dean is a man who thinks Venmo is a plot. Dean is me in a sweater. And yet, he had filed an LLC, named it after a person, been paying it with joint money, footsteps. I locked my screen. Dean leaned against the doorway, rubbing his neck, hair still flattened by a night of lying to a woman who loves him. "Morning," he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "What's for breakfast?" "I was about to ask you the same thing," I said, setting my phone face down. He smirked. "Your turn," he said, reaching for coffee like we were normal. I waited until he took a sip. I checked the account. I said. His grip on the mug tightened, just for a second. The blink I have seen when he lies. Then the chuckle. "Little investments," he said, setting the cup down casually. "A few business opportunities. Short-term gains. You know, nothing to worry about." "Investments?" I repeated, tasting the word as if it could make him say the right thing. "Yes," he said, meeting my eyes like a man trying on truth, and finding it did not fit his shoulders. "You'll see the returns soon. Promise." In the bathroom, while I brushed my teeth to keep from saying something that would commit me to a path before I had a map, I noticed his phone, face down, always face down. That night, he moved through the house with the performance of a person doing ordinary things. He put a plate in the dishwasher. He answered an email. He gave our dog, Mabel, a treat she shouldn't have had. He did not mention Ilya or Maro or any of it. I slept badly and woke stupidly early and walked into my own life with a notebook and a pen. I'm the operations director for a regional healthcare nonprofit. Translation: my job is to make sure every email ends up where it belongs, every grant report lands before a due date, and none of our clinicians get fired for telling a city council member to go hug a stop sign. Chaos. I love. People who think I will not notice their flight plan include stealing my gas. I do not love. Plan. Freeze the leak. Call the bank. Verify every transfer. Set up alerts. Make the joint account contribution only. And move bill pay. Out of reach. Open a new checking in my name with a credit union that doesn't share lobby air with him. Gather the paper. Tax returns for the last 5 years. Mortgage statements. Retirement accounts. Insurance policies. Car titles. LLC registration. For Ilya Maro. Screenshot everything. Old me would have printed in color. New me knows how to save to 3 places. External drive, cloud, and a paper copy in someone else's house. Lockdown identity. Freeze credit. Turn on 2-factor authentication everywhere. Change passwords on my email, my phone carrier, my 401k. Get a P.O. box. Swap TSA. Pre-check for. Kiss my assets goodbye. Call a lawyer. Find the woman other women recommend when you ask quietly at the wine table at a fundraiser. The one who makes men say, "Ma'am," before they know why. I called my bank during my coffee break and got Rita, the same human with her nameplate taped to her monitor. Cup that says, "Credit union people are my people." And a voice like the best part of a piano. "Ms. Archer," she said. "Hey, Sir, how are you? I need to flag transfers," I said. "Recurring ones. I also need to open a separate checking. Today, we went through each line like a grocery pantry inventory. Ilya Maro, LLC. Ilya Maro, LLC, 10 times. 750 once to Foundry LNPMT. $2,000 once to a credit card I did not know we had. We can block the LLC, she said. It's a third-party payee. You can also change bill pay authority on join, so nothing can be set up without both online logins. And her voice dropped like a kindness. We can set a daily limit to $50. Will that get in the way of groceries? No? Okay. And here's a weird one. Do you want me to send you a text whenever his card is used? I can't stop it automatically, but I can tell you. Yes, I said. Send me all the nosy. I opened a new checking in my name. I set up direct deposit for my paycheck to land there. I changed the auto pay at the utility company and the mortgage company to the new account. Pro tip: I learned listening to a CFO on a panel once. Don't commit fraud to prevent fraud. I didn't. I moved my own money. I left the joint enough to cover the bills he knows about. I added my own line item, SAR Emergency Fund. Then I called a lawyer. Rivera, Shah, a woman answered. Voice that had been trained to handle men who want to explain the law to her, and women who need the same half sentence repeated 3 ways. Sar Archer. I said, I need a consult. Today, she said. Bring IDs. Bring every paper you can carry. I met Angela Rivera that afternoon in a conference room full of sunlight and sharpened pencils. She wore black flat shoes and the kind of earrings that say, I am not here to be pretty for you. She listened without interrupting while I told her about the whisper in the dark, the transfers, Ilya Moreau, and my sudden desire to learn all 50 names for fraud. Okay, she said when I was done. There are 2 timelines here, legal and practical. Legal. In our state, once someone files for divorce and serves the other person, automatic temporary restraining orders kick in. ATROs, they freeze transfers of assets, changes to beneficiaries, everything. People who plan to steal do it before ATROs. You, not him, are going to use the pre-ATRO landscape to protect yourself. Legally. Practical? I asked. Already writing. Practical. She said, you move data, not furniture. You do not hide assets. You put separate property in a place where he can't sell it out from under you when he files. You create a paper trail now that shows what was where and when. You inventory. You photograph. You download statements. You make a list of everything that was yours before you got married. Inheritances. The condo you bought before him. The 401k from your hospital job. And we trace it. Trace it, I said. The word like good soup. We can set a revocable living trust for your separate property. She continued. Not to dodge division, just to confirm title. You move the condo into the trust if it's truly separate. You cannot move the marital home without consent. Don't even think it. You can file a homestead declaration to make it less appetizing. We'll do that. I inherited $75,000 from my aunt 10 years ago. I said, I paid off my grad school loans with it and put the rest into a mutual fund in my name. Do you have statements? She asked. I have everything, I said. Because I am me. She smiled quick. Good. We'll trace it. Separate. Property stays separate, even in a community property state. He will try to argue transmutation. We will argue math. Judges like math. What's an Ilya Morrow? I asked. A person, a lawyer, a business. He registered an LLC. Could be anything, she said. Could be a woman. Could be his lawyer in another county. Could be a shadow he pays to prove a point. I'll have our investigator pull the File. We'll see who signed. We'll get a copy of the Articles of Organization. We'll check bank records for what is happening behind those small withdrawals. People who funnel start with drip. She pushed a sheet across the table. It had boxes next to each line. I cried a little. Not because of the divorce. Because checklists are my religion, and this woman just wrote a scripture for me. Open separate. Checking. Done. Move paycheck. Done. Freeze credit. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Due tonight. P.O. Box. Due today. New email address. You don't tell your mother. Due today. Change passwords. 1 password. Bitwarden. 2-factor everything. Turn off shared. Find My. On your phone. Safe deposit box. Birth certificate. Passport. SS card. Copy of the trust will write. Your aunt's will. Will trace. Thumb drive with the downloaded statements. Photograph the house. The art. The antiques. The doggy bed if you think he'll try to weaponize it. Anything you would be sad to litigate. Remove sentimental items to your sister's house. Not because we don't trust him. Because adrenaline is a thief. Check. Beneficiaries. 401k. Life insurance. Before HROs. Don't touch his. Touch yours if it makes sense. Health directives. Powers of attorney. We will cancel any he has that gives him your voice. Do not confront him. Not yet. Not tonight. Not before you have the file in the box and a night's sleep. What about me? I asked. What about my job? My email? Tell your HR director, she said. You can trust her. Good. Have her put a freeze on any changes to your direct deposit. Have her note in your employee file that any request to change your tax withholding must be done in person with an ID. People move money through payroll when they are creative and exhausted. And if he files first, I asked, then Atros. Start, she said. And he freezes himself. You will have moved what you need to move. The court will not punish you for protecting your own separate property. It will punish him for dissipating community funds to his new LLC. Dissipating, I said, kissing that word with my whole mouth. Dana, she began, then corrected herself. Sir, you're going to do this quietly for 7 days. You will leave the house every morning like it's soccer practice. You will put things in a safe deposit box, like you are the ETA of feelings. He will file. He will do it on a Friday afternoon, because men like him think that buys them a weekend of control. And then he will panic, because the account he thought was a river is a puddle, and the house he thought he could sell is a homestead with a lien he cannot imagine. You will sit there with your pen and your lawyer and your decency. He will learn a new way to whisper. I left her office with 2 folders, a timeline, and a calm I did not deserve, and would leverage for 7 days. I went to the UPS store and got a P.O. box. I went to the credit union and got a safe deposit box. The woman behind the counter wore glasses on a chain and a pin that said, 20 years of trust. I wanted to hug her. I did not. At home, Mabel watched me photograph the living room with suspicion. She blinked at me like, we are staging, right? I laughed out loud. It felt like betrayal and oxygen at once. Dean was home late. He kissed my forehead like he was a man in a black and white movie. You okay? He asked. Too smooth. Headache, I said. He went to the bedroom, face-down phone in his back pocket. I watched his body language and tried to remember when marriage became a surveillance job for people who wanted to earn their cake. My phone buzzed at 8:18 p.m. Rita. Withdrawal attempt $2,500. Ilya Morrow, LLC, blocked. Also, card used at Foundry, Elian PMT. Texts like these okay? I typed, yes. Thank you. Forever. Dean walked back in with his voice, already in that whisper register. It's handled. He murmured into his phone. No, Ilya, she doesn't suspect anything. I poured myself a glass of water, so I didn't pour it on his head. I went to the bedroom and wrote a new list. Find out who Ilya is. Get the Ilya Morrow business registration. Print the HELOC statement. If he took a line of credit, I will see it. Photograph signed documents that look forged. He is not good at my signature. He doesn't know the way the H hooks when I am exhausted. Put the wedding album at my sister's. Get Dad's watch out of the dresser. On day 3, I noticed a thick envelope in the mail addressed to Ilya M. at our home address. Returned to sender. I held it like it was radioactive and wore gloves to open it in the garage, like a scientist. Inside, a credit card offer. One of those pre-approval letters that roll in on the backs of other people's decisions. He had been applying for credit. In other names, he was not as smart as he thought he was. On day 5, I met with Angela again. She had already received the LLC file. Ilya Morrow, manager Dean Archer, registered agent, a storefront service, no listed members, a bank account at an online fintech, cuddled up to an out-of-state bank. He's moving drip, she said. He thinks we won't notice because he isn't draining 50 at a time. He will file Friday. How do you? Because they always do, she said. They like to ruin weekends. If he is particularly dramatic, he will have you served at work. HR is ready. Ready, I said. For both. To keep me from crying on the payroll lady, and to let me cry on the payroll lady if I need to. On day 7, I went to Target and bought boxes because moving the sentimental to my sisters makes me someone who understands the difference between theft and distance. I put my aunt's lacquer box in a bin. I put the cornflower platter wrapped in a towel. I put the love letters in a shoebox. I labeled it tax returns. When Dean came home, he looked at the living room and tilted his head. We staging? He asked. For Mabel's birthday, I said. And he laughed the way you do when a woman says, no, with a joke you didn't see coming. At 4:12 p.m. on Friday, my phone buzzed. Rita. Attempt, $3,500. Ilya Morrow. Declined. At 4:27 p.m., my doorbell rang. Not the tone the door makes when a neighbor forgets their keys. The one men in jackets have. Service of process. Mrs. Archer. The man was polite. He handed me a packet. He did not make eye contact like a person who isn't paid enough to play roles in strangers' plays. I took the envelope. I closed the door. I looked through the window into the parking strip, where the grey of March was trying to decide if it was done with us. In the kitchen, I put the packet next to the lemon magnet. I took a breath. I picked up the phone. I called Angela. Filed? She said, not needing me to say it. Filed. Good, she said. Now we begin. An hour later, Dean walked in with a face like a commercial. He dropped his keys into the bowl like he had invented At home. He smiled at me, the way a man smiles at a woman, before he tells her all the words he plans to light on fire. "We need to talk," he said. "We do," I said. "And then you will panic." Dean does bravado well for a man whose plans are made of paper. Friday night, he walked into the kitchen with the service packet on the table, and a face that could sell a car with a scratch. He sat. He put his hands together like a pastor. "Sir," he said, and I hadn't noticed until that moment how little he says my name unless it announces something bad. "This is for the best. We've been done for a while." "Oh," I said. The word is tiny and useful. "For the best. We'll keep it amicable," he said. "Split everything 50-50. You keep your condo, I keep the house. We'll sell the cabin. We don't own a cabin," I said. "And we'll each take half of the joint," he continued, like I hadn't spoken. "I've already attempted 3 transfers to Ilya Morrow, LLC in the last 90 minutes. I finished. Looking at my phone, Rita had sent me the text sequence like percussion. Declined. Attempted. Declined. Dean, the ATRO started when you filed. Automatic temporary restraining orders. You can't transfer community funds now. You can't change beneficiaries. You can't borrow against our home. You can't sell assets. You can't do anything without breaking the rules you think you invented." He blinked. That was new. He had assumed I would bring tears to a spreadsheet fight. I had brought Angela. Who is better than tears? "Who is Ilya?" I asked. Quieter than the room deserved. "Don't do this," he said. "Don't try to make this about—" I picked up the LLC registration and placed it on the table. Manager, Dean Archer. Registered agent, Foundry Lane. Bank, an online fintech with a mascot. Dissipation of community funds to a shell company, preceded by a whisper in the dark. She doesn't suspect anything yet. A muscle in his jaw jumped. He covered it with an exhale that used to work on me when we were 30. "She's a consultant," he said. "She advised me on a business opportunity. Is she your lawyer?" I asked, because Angela would like to meet her. "Don't bring Rivera into this," he snapped. "She'll turn this into a war. She'll turn it into math," I said. "Who is Ilya?" He rolled his eyes. "Ilya is not an affair," he said, with the bored confidence of a man who doesn't understand that not an affair is not an assurance, only a category. "You said her name on the phone," I said. "You whispered. You paid her LLC with joint funds. If she is a consultant, she will not mind providing an invoice for services, with timesheets." He went silent. He is not good at silence. He fills it. He didn't have anything to move the air with. "You filed," I said. "Therefore ATROs. Therefore freeze. Therefore your plan to bleed accounts until I discovered a hole in my floor has failed." He stood. He paced. He picked up the packet and put it down. "You can't make this harder than it has to be," he said. I laughed. It surprised us both. "You made it harder than it had to be when you whispered and dripped." I said, "You can keep whispering. The house has ears. And a lawyer. Do you really want to make this a fight?" He asked, hands out, palms up, the pose of a peacemaker who has never paid the invoice he handed you. "No," I said. "I want to make this a process. You'll hate that more." He didn't storm out. He deflated. It is unnerving to watch bravado find gravity. He took his face to the bedroom. He closed the door. The dog followed him because dogs follow the person who looks most likely to give them peanut butter. I texted Angela. Served. Atros in. Attempted 3 to Ilya. Blocked. He said amicable. He said 50-50. He said cabin. She replied with a link and a sentence. Welcome to Standing Still. We file our response Monday. Everything goes to the court portal after that. Schedule with my office for financial disclosures. He'll panic again on Wednesday. On Saturday morning, I made a list of everything that would stand still, because I said so. Homestead declaration recorded. Done. P.O. box on all important accounts. Done. Locks on sentiment at my sister's. Done. New Living Trust. Sage. Street. The street where my aunt lived and left me enough to become different. Separate property. Moves in after we sign. Monday. Mortgage auto pay. Changed to separate account. Done. Utility spin to my separate account. Done. Freeze on joint over $100. Requires 2-factor text to both phones. Rita is a genius. HR flagged for payroll changes. In file. Angela drafted the trust. She named it Sage Street Trust because she has poetry in her body and likes herbs. This doesn't hide anything, she said when we signed. It memorializes title. Your aunt's mutual fund is separate property. This keeps it separate. When we divide community property later, if he tries to argue transmutation, our tracing will slap him with math. Math, I said. The way other people say amen. We notarized the homestead declaration. We filed it. We walked it over to the clerk, who smiled a tired smile and stamped in a rhythm that felt like the ocean. On Sunday, I planted peas because Margaret isn't the only one whose lists push. It was ridiculous. It was March, and the ground was rude. I pushed them in anyway. Dean came out to the yard and stood 3 feet away from me and pretended to take out the trash. He looked at the dirt. He looked at my hands. He waited for a speech. Do you want me to move out? He asked. Yes, I said, but not like this. Not with a bag and a whisper, with a list and a key exchange, with his dog bed and your nonsense separated. You can stay in the guest room this week while we decide a schedule. If you whisper, you sleep in the car. If you try to move money, I call Angela. If you ask me to go to couples therapy, I laugh. He nodded, like a man who has discovered that he does not understand stairs. He went back inside. He did not whisper. He slammed a cabinet door. Progress. On Monday, we filed a response. On Tuesday, Dean got an email from his bank that said, unusual activity attempted. On Wednesday, he called me ma'am, in a tone that was new and frightening for both of us. Who is Ilya? I asked when he came home with a face that had learned a quorum of hard facts. He sat on the couch without being told. My planner, he said. Your planner. Divorce planner, he said, flushing. She helps men. Exit. She told me to set up an LLC to move funds so you wouldn't bleed me dry. I sat down because the world had tilted in a way that made laughing dangerous. She told you to dissipate community funds pre-ATROs. I said. She told me to set up a business, he said. Defensive even while receding. You paid a different woman to tell you how to leave me in a way that steals, I said. Prepayment for theft is a choice. She was going to file first for me if I wavered, he said, an odd note of admiration still in his voice. She has a template. Send me her invoices, I said. Send Angela her LLC registration and any copy of any contract you signed with her. We'll see if she likes state bar letters as much as contracts. He looked guilty in a way I hadn't seen in a decade. That was something, but it wasn't the thing I needed. The week wore on. The dog looked at us both like we were failing an exam and would maybe heat her chicken anyway. I cooked. It felt like both kindness and performance. I ate one bite less because I am learning to leave silence for something other than whispers. On Thursday, I got a call from HR. Heads up, my director said. Dean called here. He asked for a change to your checking account for payroll. We told him no and filed a note. He tried to be sour with me. I told him if he calls again, I would be more sour. I love you, I said. Professionally, I laughed. You can bring cookies. On Friday, Angela's investigator handed her a piece of paper with a signature at the bottom you could feel in your stomach. Ilya Morrow was actually Ilyana Morosek. Divorce consultant, no law degree, no license. Her website used words like strategy and insider. She had been reprimanded twice for practicing law without a license. Dean had found her on Reddit. What do we do with that information? I asked. Send it to the Attorney General, Angela said, cheeks flushed in a way I would describe as battle joy, and add it to our dissipation spreadsheet. Dissipation spreadsheet. I repeated, giddy. Yes, she said. I have tabs. I am a woman. We are dangerous when organized. Saturday, I went to the credit union to check the safe deposit box, like a pilgrim visiting a relic. Rita saw me and waved because she doesn't have to pretend to be busy to feel good. You okay? She asked. Better than the week started, I said. Good, she said. You looked like a woman who had a plan when you opened the box the day after we opened your separate checking. Women with plans make my life easier. I put the wedding album back in the box anyway. It felt like the right place for it. I left the cornflower platter at my sister's because I am not done treating it like a person. On the way home, I bought a flat of pansies because they are silly and tough. I planted them under the mailbox. They looked like Joy had pulled a chair out for me. Dean moved into the guest room. He whispered less because he likes sleeping in a bed. He went to work and filed papers and learned how atros feel when he calls his brother to help him move stock. And his brother says no because I texted my sister-in-law and she sat on his face until he learned to say no. Supporters. Count. I planted peas. I put the Sage Street Trust binder on a shelf where I could see it and hold it and then not look at it. I taped Cornflower April under the magnet with rails at the park and reading night snacks and gas cards at clinic written under it. On Sunday, I listened. No whisper, no lies. Only seeds doing what they do when a woman plants them without needing to tell anyone. Next week, we will exchange preliminary financial disclosures. Dean will cry at a table when he sees that he has a lawyer who says dissipation with a smile. Ilya will get a letter from a woman who uses without prejudice like a hammer. Mabel will eat chicken. And I will do the next right thing on a list under a magnet with a lemon on it. because I am Sa. My husband planned to divorce me in a way he thought would be clever. He underestimated me. He underestimated my lawyer. He underestimated words like atro and dissipate. He underestimated plants. He is not the first man to underestimate peas. Disclosures live in a fluorescent world, all their own. On Monday at 9 a.m., Angela slid a stack across her conference table the way a stagehand pushes scenery. Our preliminary statement of net worth, because New York likes titles that shame. 3 years of tax returns, retirement statements, the mortgage, the Sage Street Trust schedule, my separate account statements with tracing back to my aunt's inheritance, and a spreadsheet with a tab named, with contemptuous precision, Dissipation. Dean's lawyer, Solomon Pike, very nice tie, a voice like a podcast. Arrived with a thinner stack and a smile that tried to apologize for the gap. Angela does not accept apologies from stacks. She accepts pages. Full and frank, she said, pleasant as a gavel. That's what the law wants. We'll assume any missing pieces or oversights today. They won't be tomorrow. Solomon cleared his throat. There are gaps, he admitted. Mr. Archer needs additional time to compile his personal account history. Angela tapped the dissipation tab with her pen. We did it for him, she said, and slid a printout. 12. Transfers to Elia Mero, LLC, totaling $16,150. An attempted $3,500 the day of filing. $2,000 to Foundry Lawn PMT. A $5,000 cashier's check purchase, 2 weeks after Valentine's Day. 2 Venmo transfers to a username that would be funny if it didn't make me want to set my hair on fire. Divorce plan Ilya. Solomon went pink. Dean went flatter in the face, the way men do when a room stops co-signing. We'll need statements for PayPal, Venmo, Robinhood. Angela continued. The Coinbase account he didn't list. Last 48532. Which our forensic found via a 1099-K, the HELOC application filed, and, thank God for Atros, denied. The safe deposit box lease at First Street Bank, opened in February, contents, an entry log, and Dropbox access to your business plan folder labeled EM. Dean's mouth did the thing lips do when they realize they've been invited to court and brought brunch. Solomon tried. My client contends the funds were for legitimate consulting to establish a lawful business. Then your client will love photocopying invoices, Angela said, smiling. With dates, with hours, with deliverables, with a LinkedIn page. That isn't a GoFundMe for adultery. We'll sync bank data via read-only access this afternoon. Our forensic will trace. We'll claw back to the marital estate every dollar we can find under Rice vs. Rice. 12 NY 2 384 1962, which I promise you I will pronounce with relish. Solomon blinked. Rice? A glorious little chestnut, Angela said, already enjoying herself, where the appellate court reminded a very clever husband that funds dissipated in contemplation of divorce can and will be credited back to the pot for equitable distribution. The more modern cases are even more specific. You can quote me in your memo. Community property is not a buffet for the hungry spouse. He did not write it down. He will regret that later. By Wednesday, the gaps shrank, not because Dean got honest spontaneously, because his fintechs did. Read-only bank feeds lit up Angela's forensic accountant's screen. Like a sting operation, the Coinbase 10999 popped into the folder like a ghost. Venmo grudgingly produced PDF histories with heart emoji and captions like "Tex" that looked like gunpowder on linen. The Foundry LN PMT charge traced to a mailbox rental for Ilya's registered agent. That afternoon, Ilya's site went dark. 1 minute, a homepage with stock photography of hands on a laptop and phrases like "insider secrets" and "exit clean." Next, 4:04, and a message that looked offended. The Attorney General's office moves like ice in February. Slow, implacable, heavy. Angela's complaint had reminded them of 2 previous cease and desist letters for practicing law without a license. This time, it came with a subpoena and a press office reply that said, "We take these matters seriously." Translation: Ilya was going to spend her Friday talking to someone who speaks in footnotes. Temporary orders were set for the following Thursday at 9:30 a.m. The courtroom, one of the old ones with high windows and wooden pews that make your knees want to confess things, filled with the kinds of whispers that belong in rooms where financial statements are foreplay. Judge Klein walked in with a robe, reading glasses perched halfway down her nose, and a disinterest in theatrics I could bottle. Angela stood. She does not waste openings. "Your Honor, the atros are in effect, but we need them in neon." Mr. Archer filed. He attempted 3 transfers to a sham LLC within 90 minutes of service. He has spent $16,750 of community funds in the last 90 days under the guise of consulting with an unlicensed divorce planner. We ask the court to restrain further non-ordinary transfers, to order Mr. Archer to return funds to the joint within 10 days, or have those amounts charged against his half at distribution under Rice v. Rice, to grant Ms. Archer exclusive use and possession of the marital home, to maintain the status quo on bills, and given the relative incomes and dissipation, to order temporary attorney's fees. Judge Klein peered over her glasses at Dean. "Mr. Archer," she said, voice like the good wood of a pew, "did you hire an unlicensed person to help you exit your marriage and pay her with joint funds?" Dean glanced at Solomon, then at the floor. "I hired a consultant," he said. She said she wasn't a lawyer. The judge finished. She was correct. That is not a defense. That is a confession. "Ms. Rivera, your Rice v. Rice point is noted. My own note adds that this court polices pre-filing dissipation with more enthusiasm than most. Mr. Pike, your client will return $16,250 to the joint within 10 days. If he cannot, those dollars will reduce his half. He is restrained from any non-ordinary transfers, strictly beyond groceries and gas. No cash advances, no gifts, no short-term opportunities. He will turn over access to any crypto accounts. By close of business." Solomon tried to make a sound that could be plausibly described as objection. Judge Klein gave him a look that said, "Save it for when the water is deep." "Exclusive use?" Angela asked, brisk. "Yes," the judge said. "Ms. Archer has exclusive use and possession of the marital home. Mr. Archer will remove his clothes and personal effects by next Wednesday at 5. He may return for a one-time 2-hour supervised retrieval with counsel if he forgets his toothbrush. He may not return to the property otherwise, without written consent. He may not list it on Zillow. He may not tell his Reddit friends it is inventory. If he does, we will discover the contempt powers of this court are not theoretical. Angela didn't smile. She wrote, exclusive use, order. She underlined it once. Fees, she said. Family Court Act, paragraph 438. Granted, Judge Klein said. $5,000 toward Ms. Archer's reasonable attorney's fees within 30 days. I have seen enough of Mr. Archer's bank statements to know he is not indigent. I have read enough of Ms. Rivera's memos to know she is not cheap. Dean turned, a color that makes doctors reach for a cuff. He looked at me with an amalgam of betrayal and surprise, as if I had undone his seatbelt rather than written myself a better airbag. Anything else? The judge asked. Yes, Angela said. Health insurance status quo, life insurance beneficiaries status quo, and a ban on contact with any divorce consultants who lack bar numbers. So ordered, Judge Klein said, not bothering to hide her satisfaction with that phrase. We walked out into the hallway. Angela handed me a copy of the minute order, like a flashlight. Dean stared at a spot on the linoleum, where a child had scuffed a shoe, sometime in 1997. His lawyer murmured in the language of men, trying to salvage dignity. I did not linger. The house felt different that night. Not safer exactly. Less available. To strangers. I vacuumed because my body refuses to let me have a big feeling without doing a menial task. I put the minute order in the cedar box labeled Sage Street. I fed Mabel chicken because I am learning to bribe what I can. At 2:44 a.m., I woke abruptly. I did not hear a whisper. The house hummed. Refrigerator, furnace. All the good machines doing jobs you forget to thank them for. My body waited for. The sound it had trained on. Low voice, smooth vowels, lies. Silence sat on my chest, and for once didn't weigh more than me. I slept until 7:08, without opening my eyes once. In the morning, I walked to the kitchen with a gratitude that made me feel stupid and holy. The lemon magnet held 3 sheets now. Margaret's List, Cornflower, Sage Street. I made coffee and wrote as if handwriting were prayer. Cornflower, May, Park Rails. 2 more. Invoice Morales. Clinic gas cards, 20, 25. Helen's, idea, gas for chemo runs. Library summer reading snacks, healthy-ish. They want oranges, not cookies. I am choosing to be mature about it. Mic stand bass. Someone tried to lean on it. Replace. Angela called at 9, cheerful, because she likes having orders she can enforce. Crypto passwords turned over. She said, we drained the Coinbase to a joint before Atros shut even that door. The AG took our Ilya package. Her site is still down. She will be sternly lectured in a room with moldy carpet. You, my dear, will not be deposed for 3 months if I can help it. Let him stew. Thank you, I said. What is the opposite of dissipation? Accumulation, she said. We're accumulating patience and receipts. Reader texted. Transfer received. $5,000. Attorney's fees. He paid. Miracles exist. I sent her a gif of Gene Kelly. Tap dancing poorly, because I am a woman of taste. I went to work. I filed grant reports. I called a clinic about maternity leave policy. I told a young project manager she did not need to bring a sweater to a meeting to look managerial. I ate the yogurt I hate because my HR director had left it on my desk with a note that said, "Protein so you don't faint when writing emails to men who used to be your family." At lunch, I walked to the community center. The new mic stand was already in use. Mr. Williams announced Neighbors Night Karaoke with a confidence the world did not deserve. The sound was clean. The room clapped. It made me cry in the bathroom for 3 minutes because apparently that's where I put joy now. Dean texted at 3:12 p.m. "Can I come by to get my suits?" I typed, "Yes, 5:30, 6:30, bring your list." No, Ilya. He did. He was on time. He did not whisper. He signed for his boxes. He took 2 suits and left an absolutely unnecessary tie. He stood in the doorway for a moment, like a man who wanted to tell a joke in the wrong language. "Sir," he said, "I didn't think you'd fight like this." "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm organizing. It will feel like the same thing to you for a while." He went down the steps. Mabel watched him and decided she would not bark. She is learning too. In bed that night, I dreamed about peas. Tiny green fists pushing up through rude ground, insisting. The dream lasted as long as a decent REM cycle. No whispers, only plants, money behaving, and Judge Klein's eyebrows. Friday, a letter arrived with a seal in the corner. Attorney General's Office. "Thank you for your complaint regarding Ms. Morosek. Our office has issued a cease and desist and requested documents pursuant to paragraphs 63-12 of the Executive Law. Practicing law without a license is a misdemeanor. Our Consumer Frauds Bureau has opened a file." I taped the letter under the magnet because Margaret liked official paper. I put a copy in the Sage Street binder because Angela likes creating binders. Other lawyers will envy when they read footnotes. On Saturday, Lily brought over a box of paperback books and a kid in tow. "Jamal," she said, beaming. "This is Mr. Morales' roof guy's friend. He likes engines. We thought he could see the rafters from the attic ladder. Be useful." We showed him the ridge vent, the tin horseshoe, the place where the flashing had needed replacing, and how it got sealed. He asked 4 questions without blushing. He shook my hand like he wanted me to hire him, and then took 2 of the books Lily brought and left, with an overlay tucked inside one. On Sunday, I planted a second row of peas, because sometimes endurance is silly. I mailed cornflour checks and receipts. I updated the list. I wrote sleep on it like a joke, and then crossed it off because I had. Next week, there will be more forms. There will be a case management conference where Angela will wield schedule like a fencing foil. There will be a phone call with HR because I need a day in June to sit in a courtroom and remember that my life does not depend on whether a judge believes me. There will be a text from Rita reminding me to bring her pie. There will be rails installed at the park. 2 old men will hold one like a conversation and then use it without talking, which is how you know a city is honest. And there will, I hope, be no whispers in my house. If there are, they will be mine. Please, thank you. Stop. If the peas sprout this week, I will bring a bowl to Margaret's headstone and put them there, and someone will come along and wonder why a woman is crying over legumes. It will be fine. Sir. My husband planned to divorce me and thought he was the main character in a story where money obeys whispers. I wrote a list. I taped a letter. I hired a woman who treats law like soup. His plan backfired. My life is boring in the right ways. The lemon magnet holds. The dog eats chicken. The mic works. Onward. Case management conferences are the exact opposite of whispers. They are fluorescent, on the record, politely boring. And one of the places men like Dean learn that a calendar can beat a plot. Judge Klein looked down at us, over the tops of her glasses, like she'd been assigned 36 people to shepherd across a river, and was personally offended by how many of us showed up with luggage. Counsel, she said. Status, Angela stood. Atros in place and working. We finished preliminary disclosures, exchanged read-only bank feeds, and traced dissipation totaling $16,750 to a sham LLC operated by an unlicensed divorce planner. We have a new ledger of attempted transfers. Post-filing, they were blocked. We've received crypto passwords. Accounts liquidated into the joint until Atros fence, even that. Temporary orders are in effect. Exclusive use and possession to my client. Fees paid. No non-ordinary expenses. We propose discovery deadline 90 days. MSJ on dissipation after. Early settlement conference in 1:20 to save the court time. Mr. Pike, the judge asked. He cleared his throat. His tie was still very nice. We agree to the discovery schedule. We will contest characterization of certain funds as sham expenditures. Delay that speech. Judge Klein said. You can give it to the appellate division when Ms. Rivera hands you your head in a memo. Discovery 90. Settlement in 1:20. No games. She looked at Dean. Mr. Archer, if you have further consultants in mind, fire them. Hire a therapist and a calendar. Yes, Your Honor, he said, selecting humility like a menu item. Outside in the hallway, Angela put her hands in her pockets, like she was warming them on a win. He wanted you rattled by chaos, she said. Instead, he has a schedule and a ledger. This is where his plan backfires for the first time. For the first time? I asked, because I have learned to enjoy dessert. Just wait for child support conversation, she said, then corrected herself. If we had children, in our version of the game, it's the house, fees, and dissipation. He will also realize you're keeping the dog. The backfire was not dramatic. It was relentless. Payroll change requests he sent to my HR director. Flagged and filed. The HELOC application he thought he could clarify in person by being charming. Denied with an Atro citation that might have made a lesser man weep in a bank lobby. The joint accounts, under text alert lockdown. He spent 3 days learning how small ATM withdrawals feel when they cannot ruin women's months. Angela filed a motion to credit dissipation back to the community pile at distribution. The brief began. Mr. Archer's Reddit-inspired shell. Transfers are pre-filing dissipation of marital assets in contemplation of divorce. Rice versus Rice, 1962, squarely addresses this court's authority to credit such amounts against his share. See also Mahoney-Buntsman, v. Buntsman, 2009. Spouse's use of marital funds to pay obligations, not in furtherance of the marriage, is not chargeable to the other spouse. She sent me a copy with the subject line, "For your magnet, I printed it," and, yes, taped a one-page excerpt to the pantry door because Margaret liked official paper and I like making my kitchen a chapel for law, done kindly. On Tuesday, Ilya emailed me from ilyanaamaroplans.com. Subject, clarification sauce. This is Ilyana. You've made a serious mistake, dragging the Attorney General into a private strategy. I am not a lawyer, and I state that on my side, but men call me because women like you refuse to make the first move. I helped Dean structure his exit so you wouldn't take him for everything. That's what your lawyer would have done. You're both grown-ups. We can settle this between us if you call off your attack dogs. Ilya. I stared at the screen long enough for my coffee to go cold. I forwarded it to Angela with one sentence. Do not let me reply. She wrote back instantly. Do not reply. Forwarded to AG. Also, send me a carbon copy printout for my file so I can enjoy signing the cover letter with Dear Sir or Madam in my best handwriting. I printed it, slid it into the Sage Street binder, and fed Mabel a carrot because she likes being paid for my restraint. Discovery inched. Our forensic accountant traced Ilya's LLC deposits to a neobank and then to a personal checking account at a sleepy community bank with a branch near an Ilya's current address. The AG asked Ilya for her client list. Her site went from 404 to under maintenance. Reddit quietly scrubbed her exits subthread. Angela sent me a screenshot. For my scrapbook. The internet does not erase. It only hides, she wrote. At home, life refused to suspend itself for my legal education. Cornflower's May checks went out with a riot of receipts. Morales's guys put 2 more rails at the park. I watched an old man test one with the caution of someone who has been betrayed by gravity and then watched him stop pretending it offended him to need help. The clinic's administrative director texted me a photo of a stack of gas cards, fanned out like poker. Chemo rides, he wrote, and I was undone at the kitchen table because apparently I am now a woman who weeps at $25 bits of plastic. On Thursday night, Neighbours Night karaoke blessedly featured more Aretha and fewer Sugar Ray because I had asked Helen to quietly set a setlist boundary. Mr. Williams crooned through a mic that did not show off. It just did its job. Jason and Brianna came and sat on the sofa near the back door and did not ask me who paid for the mic. Brianna brought a bag of clementines. I forgave her for the cornflower incident in March for the 3rd time. Dean abided temporary orders like a man who had been given a leash and was just now discovering you can walk while tethered. He moved to a furnished apartment near the office. He texted about Mabel. Can I pick her up to take to the dog park? And sometimes I said yes. He tried to retrieve a few more items and found Angela literally sitting on the stairs at the agreed time, which eventually made me enjoy writing access per the order in my emails. One morning, I found him on the porch when I came back from walking Mabel. He stood there like a man pretending he had always belonged outside inns. This way. Don't break the order, I said. I won't, he said, hands visible. I wanted to say, I didn't understand rice versus rice until I read your magnet. Most men don't understand magnets. I said, we're all learning. We could settle, he said, tentative. You keep the house. You refinance. We split retirement. You charge me the dissipation and fees. We We could make this not war. Talk to Angela, I said. You'll get a letter. Don't whisper before then. He nodded. Ilya emailed you. She emailed me, I said. I forwarded it. She called the AG. Attack dogs. It didn't help her. He had the good sense to wince. The settlement conference in Judge's Chambers, 120 days out, was anticlimactic, which is my favorite kind of climax. Judge Klein reviewed the proposed terms like she had a whole schedule of other people pretending to be complicated, waiting behind us. House. Exclusive to Ms. Archer. Refinance within 90 days to remove Mr. Archer from the mortgage. If refinance fails, house listed for sale, spring next year. Distribution credited to Miss Archer for roof expense and homestead filing fee and attorney's fees. She read. Retirement, equalization via QDRO. Separate property account at Sage Street excluded. To tracing. Vehicles. Each keeps their own. Loans remain. Crypto. Liquidated to joint. Divided 50-50 as it existed at date of filing. Dissipation. 16,150 days. Credited to Ms. Archer at distribution. If not enough assets to credit, judgment against Mr. Archer. For the balance. Pets. Mabel to Ms. Archer. Temporary order for dog park visits to Mr. Archer. Weekly when Ms. Archer is feeling like a hero. Angela smiled with her eyes. So ordered, she said out of habit. Judge Klein didn't dignify the joke but did not correct her. Dean swallowed and signed. He looked like he had learned something small and steady about how much control a calendar and a smart woman can exert on a plot. Outside, Angela put the signed draft in her folder. Like a person putting a child to bed. You did this, she said, because she is generous, and because she knows I need sentences that replace whispers. Cornflower did some of it, I said. Cornflower's good at chairs, she said. This required locks. We had a mortgage refinance ready within 90 days, because apparently I have the credit score of a woman who doesn't like fun and the income of someone who reads grant guidelines for a living and the best banker in Erie County. I signed. Rita stamped. Lily brought me a cupcake with sprinkles because she knows how to trick me into celebrating without making me blow out anything. In August, the peas did their ridiculous job. Tiny fists of green grew up the twine. I took a bowl to Margaret, and if you think I didn't talk to a headstone in a cemetery like a person who is alive, you haven't been paying attention. Rice vs. rice. I told the stone, like a secret. It's a thing. I brought Jamal to see the roof once more. He brought me a reading list for engines, and I was proud in a way that made my face warm. He starts in September in a Volcaid track that Lily helped him get into. He wrote a thank you note in block letters. Thank you for the overlay. It is a color that makes me go forward. I taped it under the lemon magnet because I am curating a museum of useful paper. In September, the AG's office sent me a form letter that warmed my bones. Ms. Morosek has agreed to cease offering legal services in New York without a license and to refund consulting fees to 3 complainants. One of those complainants, it turned out, was a woman Ilya had convinced to drain a 529 plan because he'll take it anyway. I prayed Ilya's rent was late forever. Dean never cornered me again. He didn't whisper. He spoke when invited. He showed up for Mabel as if she were bilingual in forgiveness. He asked for help with his budget once, and I said, "Ask your therapist to help you ask your lender." And he did. He changed his Venmo to "Alma not that Dean," because humor is a sacrament when you're not the victim. We had one more hearing, a short one, to enter the settlement into judgment. Judge Klein looked at us like we were buildings she had inspected and found safe to occupy. A week after the final judgment came in the mail, I went to the community center with a check for an extra rail and a bag of oranges for reading night. Mr. Williams told me I should sing. I did not. I held a mic that did its job and announced that Helen was going to read the first page of 3 books, and that if you brought your card from the library next Wednesday night, there might be cookies. I did not cry. I thought about peas later. That night at home, I took the Rice vs. Rice page off the magnet and replaced it with an index card that said, in my hand, "No whispers. Boring is a blessing. Cornflour every month. Plant peas." I taped it sloppy, on purpose. Margaret would have straightened it. Lily came over the next day and straightened it. That's how you know some things are still in order. This was not the life I signed up for. It's the life I have. It is surprisingly plentiful. It has rails and rails and rails. It has no Ilya. It has law like soup and women like magnets and judges whose eyebrows are better than swords. It has my name in black ink, in places only I, my daughter, my banker, my lawyer, and a refrigerator magnet need to see. It has a dog who has stopped acting like she needs to listen for whispers to protect me. It has peas in a row.